Thanks for joining us on today's edition of Newsnight. I am Ladi Akiridoluale. The continuous controversy over the implementation of the national minimum wage continues, and positions are hardening. Also, is restructuring or reorganization of Nigeria's governance structure really a panacea to its challenges? My guest is one who believes firmly that workers deserve a living wage and that the answer to the second question is no. The national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, the APC, Comrade Adams Oshiomhole. Your Excellency, thanks for your time. Welcome again to this night.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Let me start from your primary constituency first. What's your general comment, your view about the whole minimum wage negotiation, the agreement, and what your former colleagues, the governors, are saying now about the consequential adjustment part of the thing, that each state will have to negotiate it with its unions on the basis of ability to pay and availability of resources. But the unions seem not to like that idea. The unions want an adaptation of the template that the federal government has adopted for its own workers. What's your general comment about this?
Well, first is that, even when I was a city governor, I disagreed with respect with my brother governors then that, there is this wrong notion that wages is a burden. Wages, a living wage is a necessity, not just to those who earn, but even for the economy. The primary purpose of government is the welfare of the citizens. Even the Bible acknowledges that those who labor, the laborer is entitled to his wages. And the wage must be such as to sustain the laborer. So any day, anywhere, and regardless of any position I might occupy, I am very convinced that wage levels in Nigeria are low. They are not competitive. They are not inspiring. And they, in a way, contribute to people looking elsewhere for, including resort to certain practices that you might characterize as corruption in order to be able to survive. You cannot have an economy in which even your most gifted public servants, the most hardworking, those that are even acknowledged, lots of times they celebrate annual productivity day, which means there are people who are considered to still be productive. And yet, as things are today, there is no honest, I use the word, not one honest civil servant can, after putting in 30 years in service, can earn a wage such that 1 year's salary or even 2 years' salary can buy him a new car. And to be a director is not something you attain overnight. And by the time you rise to that level, you should have probably put in between 25 to 30 years. And yet you can't, at least boast of a car, you can't earn enough to own a decent house from your wages if you choose not to resort to those practices which this government is fighting against, namely corruption. So there are many indices to show that there's something basically wrong with our system. So I am 100% in support of the trade union movement, in terms of fighting not just for wage increase, but for a living wage. But unfortunately, over the years, particularly in the public service, governments did not, and has not even now, appreciate the fact that salary administration is a matter for experts. There are labor economists who have the necessary training. You have to have seasoned, sound personnel managers or human resource managers to determine your employment levels, your compensation levels, and ensure that you pay competitive compensation in order to attract and retain the best brain. Unfortunately, the public service, I think they see the Ministry of Establishment or of Labor, those responsible for some of these things are not seen as very attractive department of government, and therefore they are mined by people who are deployed there, maybe out of punishment. And so we are buffeted with this crisis of what I call very silly, chaotic wage structure in the public service. That you ask even very senior people, what's your salary? And it takes him time to take a calculator to say, I think, which one? Is it my basic? Is it my gross? Is it my... You know, I thought we should have moved beyond those by now. And so that's my general comment with regards to wages. The other argument which needs to be addressed before we proceed is when people say we'll pay according to our ability. That's only one criteria. You must also take into account the cost of living. These two must be reconciled. If your ability to pay is 1 naira, and my minimum cost of survival is 10 naira, what happened? You pay me so that I die? And then when you say, also depending on the number of workers you employ, who determine the size of the labor force? Is it the employee who employs himself or the employer? I think government must accept its sole responsibility to have, to be able to sit down, recruit the right expertise, and revisit their organogram and determine what ought to be their optimum level of employment. But he who must employ has a responsibility. He has obligation, both in law and in morality, to pay not just wages, to pay a living wage. The crisis in the public service is unfortunate, and we cannot have a system where, as we are told every year, and sometimes I feel quite embarrassed when I hear we are paying ghost workers. Very silly, nasty word to describe huge fraud in salary administration. And what baffles me is, as governments at various levels lament the fraud in the salary administration, which they characterize as ghost workers, I'm not aware anyone has been helping the police, not to talk of being arraigned before a competent court, to explain where he found the ghosts whose name were on the payroll. And when I hear that X billions of naira has been saved from ghost workers, I'm like, whoever discovered these ghosts has additional story to tell. Now, the one that has been saved from the time the saving started, what about what was lost before that saving? Lost to whose pocket? Invisible? No. We need to go to those routes. I believe that if government are able to clean up the fraud in salary administration, they will find enough revenue to pay those who actually work, such that they will have a very, very happy workforce. However, there is this complete misconception about what minimum wage is about. And far too many people are completely unaware of the whole essence of the minimum wage. Minimum wage is not supposed to be paid by governments. Government should pay over and above minimum wage. Minimum wage is meant to protect workers in what we call sweatshops, who have no bargaining strength, who may be unable to form strong trade union to negotiate for them. And so the state, as a matter of obligation, enact law to create a floor below which no worker should be paid, so that those workers who are unfortunate to find themselves in sweatshops working with all manners of persons and who cannot go on strike, they cannot even negotiate or even belong to a trade union because the employer harasses them. That law will protect them. But the state is easily the most organized former employer in the formal sector.
Isn't this at the base a problem that people have referred to in asking that the structure itself needs to be reorganized. I'm talking about the battle of true federalism, the movement of some of the
Don't
powers.
use the word battle. I think it's more correct to use the word confusion. Issue about how this relate to minimum wage.
Yes.
It is about the brain and perception. I give example. There is nothing in the structure of Nigeria as is, under the present constitution, that forbid anyone from proactively sitting down with his own employees, whether in the public or private sector, to negotiate wages and effect payment. Now, this is not a theoretical issue anymore, because I went ahead and increased the minimum wage without waiting for federal government.
Yes, but you took it up.
I decided to. So that's why I say there are things that we can do that we abstain from doing. Now, let's just round up this leg of the argument. Once the minimum wage law was passed, that was probably March this year or April?
April.
All right. What I expect every employer to do, including private sector, public sector employers, is to say, as a result of this new law, what are the implications for my workforce? Will there be consequential adjustment? If so, get the machinery in motion and begin to discuss those consequential adjustments. So while the federal government is doing its own, the state ought to be doing their own. If everybody was doing his own, nobody is waiting for the other. It is not a law that says don't do it until the federal government has concluded. It's just an attitude. So how does structure affect that attitude? It's attitudinal. But the private sector did not wait for the federal government to change the minimum wage before, in the same structure, whether balance or imbalance, however you want to characterize it, other players in the system went ahead and they are negotiating salaries every year or every other year according to their own understanding of what their workforce need and what their businesses can afford. It is that attitudinal change more than anything else that will matter. If you redistribute the region or whatever you want to do, because this thing means differently to different people. And some people still think, let's wait for what federal government is doing. If you look at most of the media report, you will find that at a point in Nigeria, it was very attractive for evil states to say, federal government, come and take over this university. Come and take over this college, to show the potash you attached to it. And in the process, they were ceding power to the center, not by the Constitution. Right? We got to a point that people woke up and said they are taking over missionary schools. It is not the structure of Nigeria that asked them to do so. They just decide that, oh no, we want to take over running of schools, and in the end, they took over the schools and run them down. Not to stop anyone now sitting back and say, given the crisis in the educational sector, should we not return these schools if we cannot run them well? Nothing in our structure currently forbid anybody or prevent anybody from doing that.
Some of them are doing
So
it.
I just believe that, we are in a country where you had a system in place, you have challenges with the system, you then decide to change it, then along the line, you thought that just by the change, everything will be fine. You find that effort is still required. I'm saying, no, I need to return back. For example, even the issue about state police. We had regional police before. Why were they abolished? Now, I look at analysis in Channels television. Each time there is local government election. And the attitude between governors and local governments. And you hear that state ABC won all the elections, all the local government chairmen, all the councillors of the governor in power, his party wins all the elections. That is an attempt to decentralize. This a very otherwise simple thing, conduct of election. You now begin to see INEC in Abuja as angel compared to state election
Commissions.
election commissions. So that ought to be an example, but it's worse. Now, there are a couple of other state institutions. I've watching debates about the performance of state oil-producing commissions in
yes.
some of the oil-producing states. When you look at the fraud that goes on in NDDC over the years, you look at what is going on in those same state equivalent of NDDC, you can hardly spot the difference in many of the states. There could be few states where they are working, but most of the time, it's battle for revenue. Those who shout loudest about restructuring, whether as individuals, they have not put any document on the table for us to scrutinize so that we can have a window into what their own idea of restructuring is, what needs to be restructured, and to what extent. They just say it, and the people celebrate it.
No, that's not correct.
Okay, show me.
Many of them have pointed to the 2014 National Conference report, which this government has said it will not touch.
Yes, because why did the government that said the report didn't start implementing it? That is not restructuring. So people are just being opportunistic. But I'm very proud that my own party, not necessarily based on that report, because that is a different, if you look at the document, there are different things there.
You mean the 2014 one?
There were even people still calling for creation of more states.
Yes.
Even as some people are saying we should return to regions. So you generate more heat rather than light, in some cases. Not when I say you, I mean peoples.
I understand.
But I'm proud that my own party took the issue seriously, not based on that document, based on general public commentary. Although it is worrisome that those who, like when I was a governor, I met with some group who came to see me, who wanted us to sign a memorandum demanding the creation of a new state from Edo State. And they lectured me about the benefit, revenue allocation, etc., etc., etc. And I told them no. Unless you want people to buy more siren, more commissioners, and you put all the money on overhead. They lectured me about the fact that it will be viable, we have these resources, that resources, and so on and so forth. But the same people at another stage had a meeting between Edo and Delta leaders, usually people of the same age bracket. They are much older than me. And they said to me that they have now forged an alliance with Delta for the return to regions. I said, really? Okay. And they also want me to work with my then colleague in Delta that will provide for the creation of the old Midwest. And I said, okay. Now, this is my confusion. Yesterday you came, you said we should split it, because there are so many applications before the National Assembly calling for more states to be created. We should not be left out of it. We should also demand creation. And now, today you are here. You want me to join my colleague in Delta and call for a unification of Bendel. Where will the capital be? It has to be in Benin, of course, from the point of view of Edo people. Are we so sure that our brothers in Delta will accept that? So I see a lot of people, particularly the old generation, I think they shouldn't really be participating in this conversation. Because if we are in confusion today, they lay the foundation for it. The solution for tomorrow, which we are not going to be part of, should be better discussed by those who have a stake in that future. Our children are the messengers we are sending to the future. They need to understand the issue. But my own position is this. We definitely don't need to overload the federal government. I have said it so when I was a governor, even before I became a governor, and even now. It is clear that, for example, the concept of federal roads, there are no federal people. Of course, in some other countries, you have federal highways and so on. But the reality of Nigeria now is that you are in your state, the road is broken down, it's not your state road, you can do nothing about it, but your people are stuck. I also think that we also deregulate power. Federal government cannot continue to have monopoly of power. States should be able to, if they can, set up power, do their own deal with power providers or generating companies and distribution companies, and liberalize the entire sector without recourse to anybody in Abuja. You know, there are a couple of other things I believe we can do differently and do more efficiently. That we don't need to concentrate those powers in Abuja. I am also a believer that you don't need to put so much resources in Abuja. Even in terms of Nigeria political stability, I believe that if you take more resources out of the center and take them to the states, then there will be less attraction to come to the center. And to that extent, the fight for control of the center, that it's my turn, not your turn, that may be less. And if the parts are fighting, the center can come as a moderate influence to settle. But for as long as the federal government controls the kind of resources they control now, their share of the federation account.
As against those of the states.
Yeah, as against those of the state, I think that the system will not be stable. We do need to review that. And once you review the revenue allocation, you must also concomitantly review the issues in the concurrent and exclusive list. And if you do that, you transfer more responsibilities to the state. And states should really function better. First, it's easier to clamp down on the governor that is misbehaving than to clamp down on the president. Even if you look at the facts as they are today, no matter what anybody wants to say, many governors are being interrogated, at least when they're out of office. Many have appeared in court. Not what president has ever been investigated, or at least arraigned in court. And we say all of them were angels. So it appears that they are too big to appear to be in the dock. But at least you can interrogate a governor. So if you redistribute the revenue in a way that put more resources in the states, there will be some abuses. There are abuses even now. But I think over time, there will be healthy competition. Even right now, I know that there's some level of healthy competitions between states, wanting to be seen to be tried to do better than the other state. And that, for me, could lead to very positive development. So I have no doubt whatsoever that you need to review the revenue allocation formula in favor of the states and less at the center, and also reduce some of the burden of the center. For example, agriculture. I say that agriculture is like a man who has no wife, who is budgeting so much for buying a wrapper and so on. I mean, the federal government has no land. I would rather that that budget of the Ministry of Agriculture is structured in a way that the states are encouraged, because they have the land, or that the Land Use Act. And again, talking about the confusion, when you say battle, I say no, it's more of confusion. You know, there was a lot of challenges getting land for development, both for public facilities and even private businesses. It is of the strength of this crisis that the then government, being a military government, unable to assert even its military might to get land for public use, for public good, that they enacted the land use decree and subsequently caused it to be integrated to the Nigeria Constitution. Now, people are debating, we must repeal the Land Use Act. It constitutes a kind of impediment to growth and development. All sorts of allegations, and so on and so forth. But people forgot what gave rise to it. If all was well, who would tamper with what works well? But the problem we have is that if you have a little issue, our only prescription is repeal and return to the past, to where we are coming from. If that past was good, why did you change it? So that's why I speak to what I say as more confusion, a lot of heat, very little light. I think that we need to be more constructive in looking at our crisis. We do have very serious crises. Some that we do need to tackle them decisively. But we will only be able to do so if we focus on them as a people, not as people talking as if it is about they and us, we and them, and creating all kinds of artificial divide. And then an argument that can benefit from serious objective analysis of prescription, diagnosis, and solutions. You'll find that it is hijacked by ethnic champions who approach everything from ethnic perspective. And sometimes in my quiet moment, I simply, because I have lived in the West, I have lived in the North, and have governed in the South. I do not know what is good for one part that is bad for the other. And I do not think that you need to punish one side for the other side to prosper. And even when I look at all these other issues that lazy politicians use, I use the word lazy, because in the absence of ideas that will fire the imagination of the people, people resort to base sentiments. And yet, when you come to that level, to say, okay, we have elected you on account of this primordial sentiment. It is your turn. I've seen you interview people on this. Go and carry out empirical studies in Sokoto, in Mina, in Abeokuta, in Katsina, in Bauchi, Tafawa Balewa?
Yes.
Kano, Murtala Mohammed.
And Sani Abacha.
Jos, or Zaria, General Gawan.
Yes.
And Kano, or Maduguri for Abacha, both. And ask the question, is there any correlation in terms of the level of poverty, the level of unemployment, the level of deprivation? Whatever human welfare aid you want to use, have you found any correlation that shows that when the son of the soil became president, became military head of state, over such a period of time, that the fortune of their people, as a consequence, improved? I don't see that evidence. And yet, we are bogged down with this argument about where people come from, as if that by itself explains or can change our fortune as a people. My own understanding of the Nigeria condition is much deeper than that. When I look at what a local government chairman is doing in his locality with the resources allocated to the local government, you ask yourself, now for clarity, not all of them, not many of them, there are some, you ask yourself, everybody know you here. This money is for this your locality. And you look people in the face and you do this to them. I think we can do a lot more to revisit our core values, our attitude. Many things have changed, unfortunately, rather negatively, in terms of our habits. And if those ones don't change, we keep looking at constitutional arrangements, but the attitude is the same, I'm not so sure how much is going to change.
Federal, states, the last time the report was made, it says that we are owing more than 25 trillion naira now. And that going by what is going to happen with the 2020 budget, our entire revenue profile, as expected from that expenditure profile, will not be enough even to service the debt. So, do you worry that we're going to have a debt problem again with all the attendant consequences that may bring?
As you have pointed out, it will appear that our debt profile is increasing again. Yes, it is. And it's likely to continue to increase unless we find courage to do a couple of things differently. Last week, the president last month, I think, took some decisions which a lot of people may have downplayed, but they are indicators of the concern of the President Buhari, that we must cut our recurrent expenditure. Often people mistake recurrent expenditure for salaries and wages. Sometimes what people spend on travels is much more than what they pay out in wages. And I know in the policy, in the retreat that the president had with the new ministers, these issues were raised. That we have to cut, ministers travel every other week, parliamentarians are traveling every other day. You can't be spending like that. You just don't have enough to meet, to move it to the capital project. And it is what you spend in the capital sector that will improve your infrastructure. I feel what we should worry about, and we should remain vigilant on it, is that if it's bad enough if you earn and you mismanage. And that has been the case of Nigeria. I think the tragedy of Nigeria is not the fact that we borrowed or we are borrowing. What are we using it for? What we must insist on even now is that for every $1 we must borrow. Because if you don't borrow, you probably end up not doing anything. Every $1 you must borrow, the Nigerian people must get value for that $1.
Many issues, many of the issues that are on ground, people have taken positions, as you pointed out when we're discussing the restructuring issue. People have taken positions. And therefore, many also describe it as being more difficult to organize around a consensus on any particular thing because people take positions. Take, for example, you mentioned agriculture earlier when you were saying that you know, you would prefer that the federal government divest agriculture and provide those funds for states to do something useful with them. If you take the issue of the herdsmen farmers, that has had profound impact on agriculture and output because that battle went on for quite a while. Even though in many of the places where it was ongoing, it's now subsided. But it's been replaced by other things in many of those places, kidnapping and so on, banditry and all of that. Now, speaking in your role as the ruling party chairman, but also as a former governor, a labor activist, and a stakeholder in the system, at this point now, politics aside, what do you think of that aspect of our challenge? Because all the other things we've talked about so far in this interview will be impossible if there's no security. What do you think about that, and how best can we address this challenge?
Well, I think you summarized it by saying security challenges. I think we recognize as a party, and our president recognized as President Buhari, that security remained a key issue, and that was why in the 2019 presidential campaign, he re-emphasized, and I believe correctly, our party reiterated the fact that the critical issue around which we organized our campaign in 2015 are still very much valid. Security, corruption, anti-corruption, and again,
economy.
These two, how you solve them, impact on the economy. So they are not actually separate items. They are more or less interwoven. One is a precondition for the other. I don't think that is an issue. We are clear. Everybody understands that. However, the challenge is you can't decrease security. This is the area in which I thought that if there's an attack on the nation state by bandits, by whoever, kidnapper, whatever, there ought to be a kind of national consensus. Let's fight these criminals for who they are. Let's just fight the criminals for who they are. Let's not introduce politics into it. You know, there must be those issues where Nigerians are unanimous, are united. That this is an issue, we need to deal with it. Now, it's also a complex thing, but let me just simplify because we don't have time. I'm happy you said, the issue of herders-farmer clash has gone down.
Yes, the reports are.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe because now we are in the rainy season, and you have more greens in more parts of the country, and so the pressure on the herder is less. Maybe as you approach the dry season, and more either gets dries up, and because the animals must feed, water must find its level, you begin to witness tension. I think we need a national conversation by experts, not by ethnic champions. I'm worried when I hear some part of the country say, we want this solution, not this solution. We need a national solution because the truth is we need beef. Do we also want to be importing beef? If so, from which resources? So we just need a conversation around those issues. Conversation not by politicians, by people who understand the issues. I think we don't need to reinvent the wheel in the 21st century. You know, and obviously prescriptions that work 50 years ago, they will work now. Policies that were appropriate when the population was 100 million cannot possibly be appropriate when the population is now 200 million. There are a couple of things that we have to be forward-looking and begin to plan for. And the good news is many countries of the world have found sustainable solutions to these problems. They are not peculiar to us. We just need to go, how did you do it, and get it done here. But when the thing is hijacked by ethnic champions, we generate heat, very little light. But no question, we do need to revisit the issue of security. And kidnapping, strange. The first time I heard of kidnapper was watching Godfather. You see the Italian people who they kidnap big people. But look at what is going on. It started with, again, I'm not sure exactly when, but between 1999 and 2000, somewhere in Port Harcourt, in Rivers State, and then later in the oil-producing states, we were kidnapping oil workers, usually foreign oil workers. And, you know, so from that situation, we now have a situation where everybody, and across the country, it has assumed a federal character. So obviously, we do need to deal with that. The security agencies must look inward and, you know, devise new tools to deal with new forms of criminality.
That brings up the issue of party supremacy. I remember listening to an interview granted by Chief Adisa Akiloye, who was chairman of the MPN in the Second Republic. And one of the points he made, which I never forgot, was that because it is the party that presents people for offices, and that under the existing laws, you cannot present yourself for an office except you are a member of a party. That even when you are in the office, you are subject to the authority of the party. In this particular instance, in many of the positions, it would appear as if that role may have been abdicated, because in many states, for example, the governor is more or less the state party leader, as opposed to him being the elected governor and then you having an elected party chairman, the same at the federal level. When you became national chairman, one of the first things you said was along those lines too, about party discipline and enforcement of party discipline. Several months down the line, how have you found it?
Well, the process of change is a continuous process. It's not like changing from generator to NEPA and vice versa. I think we've found courage to do a couple of things. But the truth of the matter is, it is not in anyone's interest to weaken the party. I think it is in the interest of every member of the party, including leaders, to respect the institution of the party. But I also find, I think one senator is late now, Senator Kura also from Niger State, who said something that I always remember. He said, it's only in this part of the world that God gives you a crown, and then out of hunger or greed or both, you take this crown and sell it to people just because they think they have money, and then you become the beggar. You know, quite a profound statement, but just to say that, you know, I think it varies from individual to individuals. It is true overall that for economic reasons, people tend to take a bow before power. But they too have powers, which they understand. Nobody quotes the Constitution more than local party officials, ward officials, ward executives, local government, etc. So they all know the rules. But sometimes, under certain consideration, they just decide to look the other way, which is part of the Nigeria condition. I think the APC, under my leadership, we find courage to do a couple of things. For example, Aisha Al-Hassan, the former Minister of Women Affairs, having accepted to be a minister under this government, also choose while still retaining the office to say publicly that he's not going to vote for our president. And meanwhile, he wanted us to give him a platform to contest election to become governor, while he will be mobilizing vote for our opponent. You know, so we had courage to say, no, this is wrong. There's also a minister who didn't do NYSC, and he was proud of it, and arrogantly said that the fact of being a minister is even more important than NYSC services. But you know the law, that under the NYSC Act, you are not supposed to employ anyone. Both the employer and employee are guilty. So, under our NWC, we decided that if you didn't do NYSC, not on account of the fact that you had the age exemption as a result of age or any other reason, we will not give you a party ticket, because as a progressive party, we should lead by example. So some courage goes into that. But just to say that party formation, party administration, party discipline, party supremacy, whatever you say, these are all work in progress. You can't decree them overnight. You have to cultivate people, because at the end of the day, there is the other question: who is the party? Is the chairman the party? The chairman is not the party. The chairman is the chairman of the party, is not the party. He himself is guided by the rules of the party. The rule tells us how a chairman should emerge, and it defines the limits of his office. So you are not like the owner of a private business who can say, well, this is my business, I do whatever I want. You are also regulated. So I would say but it's a very tedious and tactless job. Those whose actions are affected positively might at best pray for you silently. Those your actions affect negatively, not because you set out to hurt them, but they got themselves caught on the wrong side of the law, and you do something in the course of enforcing the law and it hurts them. They are the one who will cry loud and probably go the extra mile to try to bring you down. Those who are happy, at best, they just keep quiet. So out of 100, if 90 people are happy, they just go back to 90, at best, 90 locations. And say, oh, he's a nice guy, he's a nice guy. And then the 10 who are not happy are the one who will gather and do a press conference and speak to the fact, oh, you have done this, you have done this, you have done this. You then think that all that happened is negative, because those who are happy don't do press conference to say, oh, thank you so much. Nobody write petition to say thank you. People write petition to condemn you. So you have to have capacity to absorb that and to remain focused and not get distracted.
So followership is also an issue.
Pardon?
Followership. Most people, when they talk like this, they talk about leadership. Yeah. But then the leadership doesn't, as some people have said, doesn't drop from heaven. It emerges from among the followers. And what you've said now speaks to the fact of why so many people want to avoid politics.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, what do you come away with?
What I tell many of my friends who often say, look, I have no time for this, I tell them, and I think Bola Ige among people said this, you know, I think there's a way in which many politicians seek to do a couple of things that will scare away the average decent human being. I said, no, I can't go through this. You open a newspaper every day, people are abusing you, even for things you know nothing about. So why do you want to go into that? And but each time decent people abstain, they leave the room for others And yet we must be governed. And around the world, it is settled that democracy is it. And democracy is about politics, it's about political process, it's about contestation, it's about disagreement and agreement, aggressive campaigns everywhere. So, and a country is unlikely to be able to grow faster than the capacity of its leadership to be able to envision, to imagine, to dream big and act even bigger. So, in the kind of democracy we've settled for, you will have to be governed by politicians. And for those who choose to abstain, they should not complain about the quality of governance, because you have to be governed by people who are participating in the political process. But I think right now it's getting cleaner and cleaner. I've seen, a lot of people now showing interest in politics. I think the mistake that many people made in 1999 in Nigeria was that if you look around, those who really struggled, who bore the risk of campaigning against military rule, all those militants in Lagos, Abuja, Kano, across the country, all those progressives, they somehow didn't think that 1999 would be a reality. And so the wrong guys, let me not say everybody, some wrong guys then got it. And now to push them out can be quite challenging, because they've got established, they got entrenched. But I'm happy that more and more progressive-minded people are beginning to recognize that you can't change society through placard. It's necessary, placard is necessary to travel to remind those in power. It's something that the powerless resort to communicate, to convey mostly their frustration, because again, people hardly carry placard to celebrate a policy that they are happy with, which is one thing about life. It is only the one they're not happy with that you find placard. But people are beginning to realize the limit of placard, and that you must go through the tedious route if you are really troubled by the imperfections in your environment, by the injustices that you see, by the abuses that you notice or witness, that the only way to contribute to the process of change is to find the courage to join and engage and not lament. Society don't change by lamentation. And what people need is not our tears. Let the injustices you see, the imperfections you notice, the abuses you observe, should be the incentive you need to say, I will join to make a difference. And each day, good people choose to do that and recognize that that means cautiously making sacrifice. But far too many people will ask themselves, what do I need it for? I'm comfortable, I don't need politics. But actually, politics is supposed to be for those who are already comfortable. You are not joining politics because you want to become comfortable. You are comfortable, but you are troubled by the pains that your countrymen and women are going through. And it's okay, I will sacrifice my comfort in order to join this process.
Comrade Chairman, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Welcome, always a pleasure.
Thank you very much. That's Newsnight today. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.